This year, as we approach the 20th anniversary of 9/11, I wanted to bring attention to the boat lift that occurred that day. I have with me today Captain James from the James Joseph fishing boat right here in Huntington Harbor. Thanks for being here, Captain.
No problem.
Captain James has spent his entire life on Long Island Sound, commercial rod and reel fishing with his brothers and father. He's very passionate about what he does, and there is nothing he loves more than seeing people catch fish and have a successful day on the water. That is exactly what he was doing on 9/11 when he heard the call come over the radio. When you got the call about the attack on 9/11, what happened next?
Well, we were anchored off of 28C in the Norwalk area. It was a crystal clear day, and the wind was northwest. My brother was a detective in New York City, and he called on the cell phones. Remember, we had the bigger cell phones back then. And he called my brother Joe, and he said, a plane just hit the World Trade Center. So we turned on 16, and we looked to our west, and we could see the smoke billowing out of the first tower that was struck.
Amazing. Now, how did you assemble a crew for the boat lift?
Well, we took a couple of minutes and we decided to pull anchor, and the Coast Guard had requested that they needed help because they were going to shut down the tunnels and the bridges. At that time, we knew there were multiple planes in the air from the information that we heard, and they figured they would attack the bridges and the tunnels. So their first plan was to shut those modes of transportation and use boats for safety. So the Coast Guard put out a call, and we had 18 customers on the boat. We proceeded back to the dock, and we talked to the Coast Guard on the way. They actually met us halfway to the dock and took 3 New York City firemen off the boat, and they got in there quicker. I never heard from the guys again. I'm not sure what happened to them. I hope they're all right, but they took them in so they could get them in faster. I got to the dock, the phone was ringing, and the guys that were with us were Huntington guys, Centerport, Northport, Huntington, Cold Spring Harbor. Some of them were just students at the time. Some of them were fishermen, lobstermen, and one was a Suffolk County police officer, a fireman, a carpenter, and everybody just said, we're willing to go. And some guys got off the boat, and we didn't make anybody go. So we understood that they had families. And we got the crew together, we got some water and some other stuff, and we headed west. And it was some day.
It's amazing for so many reasons, but probably its scope, right? There's a wonderful video that's narrated by Tom Hanks that maybe you can speak to, but in it he makes the point that this was the greatest evacuation of people, greater than even Dunkirk, right?
Right, it was twice. It was over 700,000 in 9 hours, which was double the evacuation of Dunkirk. And it was run mostly by the pilot boat in New York and with the help of the Coast Guard. And it was, as far as I'm concerned, the cooperation that you saw between the boats and the way people sacrificed their boats, that they had some of them had these beautiful boats, and they were putting them up against the bulkhead to evacuate, and a lot of them clipped their wheels off on sunken pilings. There was a lot of damage on that day, but also it was a quote in the 9/11 movie, the boat lift movie, that one of the captains had said the Coast Guard at that point didn't ask how many you were allowed to take. He said, how many could you take? So a lot of the things went out the window. Of course, we tried to take women and children first, and the first boats that went, but in the beginning, the reports were that the people were running into the water like ants, because that wind and the smoke and the fire was pushing them to the northwest. And when they turned back into it, they thought the whole city was on fire, burning. So they were literally running off the end of Manhattan into the water.
Unfortunately, there were health issues and really some devastating ones. There were 2 crew members from these boats that passed, unfortunately, and other health issues. Can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, 2 of the fellows, Teddy Schmidt and Teddy Schwartz, they came down with 9/11 kidney cancer, and they had some other issues too. All of us are registered in the program, and there's been some lung issues with fellas and seeing some masses and stuff like that, and it makes you dread each time when when you go to the doctor, because we did ingest so much smoke, so much concrete and asbestos. Myself, the next morning, I had double eye infection in each eye. But I've been lucky so far, and we would do it again. Everybody that I talked to, would go in a minute. We just probably would protect ourselves a little better if we had to do it again.
You told me really just an amazing story that happened many years after with a woman who was involved that day. Can you relate that to us?
Yes, it actually was in 2008. We were on our way home from a regular fishing trip, and sometimes people come upstairs to say thank you or say hello, and there was a very faint knock on the door, and it was a nice lady there, and a young mom with an 8-year-old child, and they were both in sundresses, which caught me as unusual.
Not usually fishing in sundresses,
no,
right?
Not usual, fishing in a sundress. And I said, well, how was your day? Did you catch a lot of fish? And she said, oh, yeah, it was wonderful. But that's really not what we're here for. So I said, oh, well, what can I help you with? She says, no, I was driving past the boat one day at high tide, and I saw the name, the James Joseph II, on the side. And I actually worked in the World Trade Center, and I knew immediately it started to click what she was going to say. And she said, well, I was on this boat, and your crew was so helpful, and I was at the 34th Street heliport, and your crew helped me on the boat, and I'll never go back to the city. I quit my job, and I moved to Huntington Bay, and I was 8.5 months pregnant at the time, and this is my daughter. And she introduced me to her daughter. So
that's got to be one of the greatest thank yous you could ever get.
At that time, I consider myself pretty tough, at times, and I just turned away as when she left, and I said thank you, and I think that the tears were running down both sides of my face. It was upsetting, but everything goes back to the to the friends and family that didn't make it and everything. But you're so grateful for somebody like that, who something could have happened, and she was under such stress. And I was just glad that, we were there, and that the other boat captains, they did an unbelievable job. I mean, the tugboats and just the cooperation and the people they helped that day was amazing. And for me, it's, it was one of the most important things I've ever done in my life.
It sounds like almost a life-changing experience to me. I mean, is it fair to say that?
It's true. I've learned a lot with, if I lost the kid Jake who worked for me, Jake Jagoda from Huntington, he had worked for me from the time he was 11 till he was 23, and he was only there working in the Trade Center for 6 weeks. And I called him immediately when I saw it happen. We lost him, and that it was a horrible, horrible day for a lot of people.
Unfortunately, I know the name because each year on 9/11 we read the names of the people from Huntington, and Jake is among the folks from Huntington that were murdered. But a young life like that, it just makes it even tougher.
Yes, sir. To spend almost every day of his life with him from the time he was 11 to 23. I consider the kids that work for me very important. The guys on the boat are like family. We consider everybody who works for me family.
Yeah. Captain James, thank you for being here today. It really was a pleasure. And thank you for risking your life, and thank you to your crew for putting themselves at risk on 9/11. As we mentioned, it was the greatest boat lift in history, even bigger than Dunkirk during World War II. That boat lift saved many, many lives on that day. On September 3rd, we'll be placing 2 plaques where you dock the boats at the harbor to commemorate the participation of the captain and crew of the James Joseph on 9/11. I want to thank the Greater Huntington Yacht and Boating Club, who have generously donated the money for a second plaque to list the names of the brave men that risked their lives to save so many others that day. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you on that date and having those plaques be there in perpetuity, so people can see them, and people when they come on and off the boat can see them, and you can share those stories with so many others.
I greatly appreciate it. And just for the guys that came with me, I feel that I was just fulfilling my responsibility, as a captain, to go there that day. But the guys that went there are the true heroes. They left their families at home, and some of them paid for it with their lives. So I'm greatly appreciated that you're taking the time out to honor these people that have sacrificed so much, and some of the citizens that they would never recognize, but now you did, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's my honor to
Thank you, sir.
commemorate that. So thank you.